Yesterday, I took my daughter down to Berkeley to get ready for her second year of university there and moved all of her stuff. And I mean, I moved all of her stuff into her new apartment there because earlier last week, she had finally gotten the results of the CT scan that had been ordered as we'd been working our way over the course of the summer to try to understand why she was in so much pain, and discovered that the knee injury that she came home from school with in May, with water on her knee from being tackled with considerable force and coming down on the turf with all of her weight and the weight of her adversary on that one knee while playing for the Cal women's rugby team, was in fact not the only injury that she had suffered in her inaugural campaign as a rugby player, but that she also has a stress fracture of her fourth lumbar vertebra. So it was, kind of hard to send our little girl back to school with a broken back. We all care deeply for our children, and when they are hurting, or as in the case of the Canaanite woman in today's gospel, when her daughter is possessed, tormented by a demon, it afflicts us more profoundly than almost anything else. And it is this love for her daughter that propels this woman to go out in search of the Jewish rabbi Jesus. His reputation for healing has preceded him, and the rumor that he is coming her way, coming to the region of Tyre and Sidon along the sea coast northwest of Galilee, is enough to make her go out and seek him and cry out to him, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many of our children are tormented. There's a variety of statistics, different studies that have been cited. I don't need to throw figures at you, but it's very clear that young people today are suffering from rates of anxiety and depression and other kinds, suicide even, other kinds of mental and emotional pain and disturbance at a rate that is kind of unprecedented. And it's perhaps no wonder then that at least some parents bring their children here, seeking Jesus, seeking to establish a relationship between their children and Israel's Messiah, the Son of David, in hopes that he can heal them if they're afflicted, or prevent them from becoming afflicted, somehow give them some spiritual strength and armor, perhaps, to resist all the forces in society today that are bringing about this tremendous sense of unease that we as adults have a difficult enough time dealing with, but that are particularly challenging for our children who face a very uncertain future, who have to deal with realities that we never did when we were growing up. A country that is politically divided, where extreme rhetoric of hatred on ideological grounds is rife, where they go through regular drills and trainings in school for the possibility that someone will walk into their classroom with a loaded semi-automatic weapon and open fire, where even the prospect of growing old in a planet that is hospitable to human life is in doubt. But maybe, just maybe, Jesus can help. That's what I suppose leads some parents to bring their children here. Perhaps they have some memory, as maybe some of us do, of our own upbringing in church, and the warmth and the reassurance and the hope that kind of almost by osmosis came into our being through that being in that environment and hearing about Jesus and his love. And yet I don't want to speak for these parents, and yet I dare say also, or at least some of them, there's some trepidation about bringing their children here to church to receive spiritual formation and religious education, if only because the legacy, the historic legacy of the church, is not an entirely perfect picture, shall we say. They may have some concern that someone is going to try to instill certain beliefs in their children that they themselves would not hold if you put the question to them. The kind of beliefs, for example, that are sometimes backed up by the reading that we heard this morning from the Gospel of Matthew. Like other stories of Jesus' conflict with the Pharisees and other representatives of the Jewish religious establishment of his day, that have, over a very long period of time, been used to suggest that somewhere along the line, maybe even while Jesus was still alive, God turned his back on the Jews. That they were responsible for rejecting him, for putting him to death, for disbelieving in his messianic mission and his identity as the incarnate Son of God, and so therefore were from that point forward rejected, no longer God's chosen people, and that their place in God's heart has been taken by us. We Gentile Christians who in place of a legalistic religion of mere outward conformity to a set of arbitrary rules, are a people inwardly moved by faith and love and hope. People who follow Jesus and not Moses, whom he replaced. Now, this idea, which has, as I say, a long history in the church, that is known by historians of Christian doctrine as supersessionism, is widely distributed, I would say. And if I were bringing my kid to church today to learn about Jesus, I wouldn't want him or her to be learning that. Because it's not scriptural, for one thing, as our letter from the Romans makes perfectly clear. Paul doesn't try to gloss over the mysterious ways of divine providence, the inscrutable workings of the divine will, and how it is that in this mysterious way, for reasons that cannot be grasped by human understanding, many of his own people, Jesus' own people, the apostles' own people, the Jews, have rejected his message about Jesus as Messiah, as risen from the dead, as the Son of God. And even more bizarrely, Gentiles, Greeks, pagan people have accepted this teaching. Like, as he says, a wild branch grafted into the olive tree of Israel. And yet, God has not rejected those whom he has chosen. If God sent Joseph down to Egypt through the malice of his own brothers, sold into slavery, and yet enabled by God to become ruler of Egypt just for this occasion, so that in a time of famine in Canaan, they might come down and have bread and a place to dwell, so that the promise to Abraham of offspring as numerous as the stars in the sky would not be made null and void. If God could do that for Joseph, then certainly God will find some way that we, the Gentile church, can't understand and have no control over, that probably does not look like all the Jews in the world joining us and adopting our beliefs and practices and customs. In fact, assuredly doesn't look like that. And yet, if Christ really is raised from the dead, if Jesus, the Jew, really lives and truly is sent to the lost sheep of Israel, then he has some future with them, some future that we don't know about, some future that we can only sort of listen in on. Because the abundance of God's mercy to Israel, God's providential care for the chosen people is so great that even though all we are really doing is gathering up the crumbs that fall from the table. It's enough for us. It's enough for us to have a whole church and come together every Sunday just for a little crumb, a little sip of wine. Not a big banquet. That day will come, again, in a manner that we can't understand, that we have no control over, that is not in our possession, but that God has laid out for all people, but especially for his Israel. That hope still is our guide. It is our nourishment. And that little crumb is enough for us to keep seeking that mercy, keep seeking that healing, keep going out from our comfort zones into the strange places where we're not sure we're welcome. Fall on our knees and say, Lord, Son of David, have mercy for ourselves and for our children.